Okay, we have people joining us. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're just going to wait a minute till more people join, and then we can start our discussion for the evening or the day, wherever you are in the world. We know Megan is on the other side of the pond, as we'd like to call it. We're here mostly in the Middle East, so this is going to be a very interesting conversation. Okay. Let's get the party started, as we're going to say. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just bear with me for a second, please. There we go. This is it. Okay, so can you see my screen? I always have to ask this question. Just give me a thumbs up. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and good day wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us tonight. I always get super excited about having this conversation. Not that I don't enjoy the conversations that are mixed as well, but of course I have a kind of a special place in my heart when it's all women conversation. This is the Women Founder Roundtable event that we are having on behalf of Founder Institute, the GCC Gulf Corporation Council countries and Silicon Valley chapter, that it will be up and running. The semester's up and running in June. So this is all about the discussion and the way we wanted it, the way we structured it. And it's going to be very organic, by the way, no structure to it from that perspective. But the way is we want to talk about and offer tips for starting, growing, and scaling a business as a woman in the Middle East, as a woman around the world, and we're going to get perspectives on that. So as I said, the structure, a very simple structure, is just a quick welcome. I'm going to introduce you to Founder Institute for those who don't know about it. So it's a very quick intro. I'm going to ask each of my amazing, empowering ladies on the panel today to introduce themselves. And then we're just going to simply have the panel discussion. During that time, please do put any questions you've got in the Q&A section. We'll address them at the end. And we invite you to stick around for about 15 minutes of networking with whoever will be able to attend from our amazing panelists. And if not, then us as Founder Institute, we will be there and we will be answering any of your questions. And the links are all going to show up in the chat. So please do check the chat for the after event networking networking event on AirMeet. So without further ado, for those that don't know the Founder Institute, it was founded in 2009, and it is at this point in time, in terms of numbers, the #1 place in the world to be able to turn ideas into fundable startups. And that's a very important concept. And we will talk about funding today, even from the women perspective, and into global businesses. Talking about globalization, I don't think it's really an option for us. If you want to scale, you need to go across borders. So Founder Institute has, at this point in time, over 5,300 portfolio companies, and the numbers are growing on a daily basis. They have received and raised over $1.5 billion from investors, with a portfolio value of over $25 billion in over 90 countries and 200 cities plus now. And I think we've also added a few tens of cities in the last cohort, with over 25,000 mentors and leaders from around the world, and over 2,500 investors already included in the network. What is the belief of Founder Institute is that great entrepreneurs are everywhere, and they just need some empowerment and some structure to be able to bring their impact to the world. The accelerators help the entrepreneurs in the pre-seed stages. So this is for everyone from the idea stage and from the traction stage to be able to look into growth of their ideas and to build the fundable global businesses. And of course, the support that Founder Institute from this massive network offers for everyone that graduates, and we say honorably, kind of carries the FI graduate label, is a lifetime support. And that is the beautiful thing about it. So just to let you know, this is the event that we're having today. We have a few events before the cohort starts, or the semester starts in June. Our upcoming event is Meet the GCC and Silicon Valley Startup Ecosystem, some accelerators and investors. And that's going to be on the 10th of May, so after Eid. And then we have a special session with Nadia Sabri, who is a certified growth hacker from NASA. And that's called Cracking the Code of Growth. And that's going to be on the 24th of May. Our semester will run from the 14th of June until September 20th. So if you want to apply, please go ahead and check out the website. That's fi.co/apply/GCC. And of course, yes.
Sorry, Hanan, the screen is black. Just that for your
Oh,
information. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Hanan, we cannot see your screen.
not at all. Okay, let me
No,
try this
not at all.
again. Let's see. Okay, let's stop the share. Okay, that was interesting. So you've seen just a black screen all across. Okay, let's give this another shot.
There was no need for the screen. You were explaining it perfect, so it was fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
So that was good. I didn't really miss it, but if there's visuals, it
Yeah,
would be
but it
good.
does help when there's a screen as
Yeah.
well. Okay, let's see. Is this showing? But that's a PowerPoint, right? Or no?
Yes, now it's going.
Okay, so let's get to the introductions. That was the last slide anyway. So in alphabetical order, I would like to introduce Diala Daoud, who is the co-founder and partner of Launch DXB, Feryal Nass, who is the chairperson or chairwoman, and also the founder of Bahrain Entrepreneurship Organization. Megan Todd is the head of admissions for Founder Institute and also the co-founder of the Female Founder Initiative, which is under Founder Institute. Nadia Mannell, she is the partner at Seed South Capital, and Simran Kaur is the founder of Power Women. Now, Diala, I'm going to ask you, please, I'm going in alphabetical order. So Diala, I'd love to ask you to introduce yourself in a couple of minutes, please, to everyone.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Hanan and team, for the invite. My name is Diala Daoud, and I am the co-founder of Launch DXB. I actually do multiple things in the startup ecosystem, and I support startups across through different organizations and through different initiatives. So primarily, as mentioned in my brief, I'm the co-founder of Launch DXB, which is a platform that supports emerging startups in UAE in specific. Any startup that wants to either establish itself and start its operations in the country, or one that wants to actually expand to the UAE in general. In addition to this, I also do support startups and do mentor startups through various organizations, including headquarters in Turkey and Ma'an, or an initiative in Abu Dhabi. And recently I took on a role where I actually consult with Uridu Qatar at the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology in Qatar on the TESMO Accelerator. So this is also an update to my profile. So literally, I work across the spectrum with different startups from different stages, backgrounds, and across multiple geographies. I'm really happy to be with all of you here.
Thank you, Diala. Feryal, nice to have you. Would you love to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, dear Hanan. I'm so happy and honored to be part of this beautiful panel with amazing women like you guys. I am Feryal Abdullah Nass. I am the chairwoman and the founder of Bahrain Entrepreneurship Organization, which we are mainly, our main objective is to support Bahraini startups and women entrepreneurs and youth, both gender. We do help them to elevate their businesses to the next level, grow globally, export, and we do different training programs, mentorship, different certified programs with regards to entrepreneurship, with regards to angel investing. And we also partnered with global platforms like World Business Angel Investment Forum. I'm also the High Commissioner for that amazing platforms. And I also am the director of Bahrain chapter for WBF. And I'm chairing these days the MENA region as well for the Angel Investments Week that will happen in the coming months. And beside those roles, I'm also the founder and the vice chairwoman of the ASEAN Bahrain Country Council that is also concerned with engaging with the 10 ASEAN countries in terms of business, in terms of social, in all aspects. I am very passionate about supporting women entrepreneurs and angel investing, startups, you name it. I have different hats, and so happy to be here and so happy to collaborate with all of you.
Thank you so much, Feryal. And yes, I got to know Feryal. I was introduced to the amazing everything about Feryal from the WBAF, which is the World Business Angel Investment Forum. And it's an amazing forum. And I know that we still have a lot to talk about when it comes to supporting women and women in business. Thank you, Feryal. Megan, would love for you to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am Megan Todd. I am the head of admissions for the Founder Institute, which thank you, you've done a wonderful explanation of. And then I also co-founded the Female Founder Initiative, which is a branch of FI that we have. It's just solely devoted to helping our female founders, whether they're in the program or not. So it's a system of programs. We do pitch deck reviews. We do weekly to bi-weekly office hours. We do semi-monthly content events, and then we do kind of mentor matching for female founders. Additionally, we have a newsletter and just an opportunity for any of the mentors in our network to kind of engage with female founders. It's been our experience that women tend to graduate our accelerator program at a much higher rate than men, but they do so when they're matched with a mentor or when they're given female mentorship. And so we've just tried to create a network where they are getting that support, whether it's available in the program or not. We're finding ways to make sure that women are getting mentored by other women without fully siloing them into a specific women-specific program, right? Because there is a value to having an open program for everyone, but making sure that there is that safety net. Just briefly about me, I've been with FI for 6 years. My background is in wealth management and financial research, and I have now transferred to startups. So.
Thank you, Megan. And we'll talk about funding and numbers as well. Very important to having any conversation about women in business is talking about how and where do we secure the funds. Nadia, speaking of funds, would you like to introduce us to
Thank you so much. So I've actually been a part of the Founder Institute network for a while, specifically in South Africa. So I work also across Africa and Middle East. I'm the co-founder and GP for Seed South Capital. I'm based in Dubai, but I am South African, and my co-founder is in South Africa. And we founded Seed South Capital for specifically that, not to focus only on women, female founders, but to up the ante when it comes to investing in women, because even in South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, 60% of the entrepreneurs are female, yet still the numbers are subpar and the same as everywhere, less than 1%. So that's Seed South Capital, where we invest in early stage startups. I am also the Chief Strategy Officer for Women in Tech. It's a global nonprofit organization that focuses on women in fields of STEM. So we focus on advocacy, education, social inclusion, and business. We've got 25 to 30, I think, chapters at the moment around the world. And hopefully we'll be 50 by the end of the year. And the chapters we have a focus also on the Middle East. Our UAE chapter is very active. Our Bahrain chapter is very active. We're looking for women who want to open up the Saudi and other areas of MENA. And I'm busy focusing on the Web3 strategy with the CEO at the moment, because women are really interested in the Web3 space as well. And then I am part of the steering committee for 2022 Female Angels. I've got the t-shirt on, so angels make noise, angels do deals, and angels invest. We are a network in Angel Syndicate here based in Dubai, but it's open for all. And our goal is to get 2022 female angel investors up and running by the end of 2022. And it's born out of the frustration of a female founder trying to raise funding in this region and beyond. So we decided to create, she decided to create a network of women just to cultivate in the investment space. I have 2 children, and I am South African Italian, and I love living in the Middle East. Very grateful.
Thank you, Nadia, and thank you for bringing up the angel, the 2022 angel. I was going to ask you to talk about it as well, because I know we had Sophie Smith. I had her on one of the previous roundtable, and she brought it up. So please do include the link and let the ladies check it out. We got a good number of signups after that conversation. Nice. But thank you for taking the initiative. Simran, talking about women and power and women in technology. Well, you're up for your introduction, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hanan. Hello, everyone. Such a pleasure to meet you all. So my name is Simran. I'm the founder of Power Women. I think thanks to Megan that she started the female scholarship. So we were one of the fellowship holding companies at FI and have recently also been a select portfolio. So it's the top 2% globally. We've also been backed recently by loyal VCs. So excited to be part of the tiny 2% globally that get funded. Very grateful to Founders Institute for having supported and brought us so far. Highly recommend it. What we do and why we do it. So even today, many women are looking to either downsize or leave their workplace. And we are building a platform and using technology to help working women, both mid-senior and senior, stay and thrive at their work life. It was a big personal problem that I went through. So a bit about my background. I grew up in India, studied technology in Germany, spent a decade working there, building and leading product development. And things, how much ever, lack of diversity or difficult being a woman in tech, when you're in your 20s, you don't think about it. You're 23, 24, you just, I'm going to do it. So reality hits harder, in 30s, had children, ceiling became clearer and things got tough. And that's pretty much my frustration. So I have worked in Singapore and also in the Middle East. My own frustration, I reached out to other women and figured out many were going through similar problems. And it just started as a hobby side project. Didn't think that time we would to build a business out of it. And I'm glad actually we did. We're solving a real pain. And we're very grateful to be here and answer all questions and connect to other stellar panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simran. So ladies, once again, thank you so much. I'm already foreseeing how insightful this discussion is going to be. And I think when I was talking about it, announcing it on LinkedIn, I was saying, are these conversations important? And the answer is always yes. Do these conversations make a difference? Yes. So that's why we're still having them. As Megan said, though, they're not in isolation. We are part of the larger entrepreneurial ecosystem. And when I think of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, I like to think of the 5 E's of entrepreneurship. So we're talking about the enticer, the educator, the enabler, the entrepreneur working towards the economy. And I'm happy that, when we were talking about having this conversation, you're all representing one or more of the facets from this ecosystem. So starting with the enticer, and I believe that a big chunk of the enticer's role is that of governments. It's setting up that foundation, setting up that vision, is getting people kind of really encouraged to work towards something, a common goal. When it comes to women, and we've seen this shift as well over in the Middle East over the past 10, 20 years, there has been this rise in supporting women. There are more women initiatives, there are more women funds, but we're not seeing possibly the involvement of women as much. And also, as you've already all pointed out, the funding towards enabling, like the educating, but then further the enabling. So enticing, we said it's more about the government and setting up that foundation, the education, what we're doing right now. So it's the accelerators and incubators. It's everyone that is educating on the fundamentals of what it takes to start a business and grow a business. And then the enablers, I think of them further as the advisors and the consultants and everyone that supports the sustainability of a business, but more importantly also the ones that are involved in the funding of the business. So they're enabling the scaling part. They're enabling the sustainable growth, as I'd like to talk about it. So I want to start with the first part. Where are we seeing the challenges in the enticement and in the education stages? Diala, I'd like to start with you. Of women specifically, let's just be specific.
As you mentioned, I believe that governments across the MENA region, I have worked so far across UAE, Saudi, and recently in Qatar. I believe that the governments are trying as much as they can to empower different entrepreneurs, either emerging ones or ones who want to scale up to these countries. And we can easily see it from the different incentives being actually pushed forward for entrepreneurs, from no taxation to subsidized licensing to ease of getting visas, co-working spaces to what have you. However, as you mentioned, what I believe might be somehow a blockage there or a hurdle for female founders to join such initiatives might be the mentality that such female founders might have. Them thinking that this might not be their place, or this even ecosystem might not be the place for them to actually thrive. We know how situation was in Saudi earlier, let's say, and I believe that many females, they still don't think that Saudi market might be a good place for a solo female founder to actually start a business or even to expand there. However, if you really check what the Ministry of Investment is actually doing in Saudi, what Munshaat and other governmental entities are doing, you will be surprised that no, there's a huge space for female founders to actually really thrive in this ecosystem. And given that it is already an emerging one, there's also a huge opportunity for them to literally expand with their business propositions and scale up or even start something new in the market itself. So that's in terms of enticement, I believe. Literally every time I sit with startups, I mentor them, I just tell them to please do some research. So before you actually make any judgment about a certain situation, a certain market, a competition, accelerator, what have you, just do some research to check if you qualify as a startup, regardless of your gender as a founder, and then apply. Have trust in your idea and take it forward. So in terms of enticement, I believe this is something really being done a lot and worked on a lot in terms of governmental entities. In terms of education, I believe also that different public and private sector players are trying to empower founders regardless of their background, geographies, genders, again, where they come from, their stages. So it's also a matter of just finding the right communities to belong to. Here among the ladies, everyone somehow mentioned a certain community which you all built in order to support female founders. So belonging or trying to find what are the close communities to you, not only physically, but also close to your own industry, to the vision you wanted to actually push forward, can help you really learn a lot from others and access education resources that you didn't know they existed for you. So again, my utmost advice for everybody is to just look around and have an open mind to check what's going around, because I believe there are so many different initiatives, and it's just a matter of finding what really suits you as a founder, personally, and also for your own startup.
Feryal, thank you, Diala. Feryal, do you think it's about the challenge for women entrepreneurs in the region, especially when it comes to tech-based and tech-enabled businesses? Do you think it's the entrepreneurial mindset or their knowledge of what is being offered from the enticers and the educators?
Hanan, I think it is the knowledge and not knowing, or the awareness, I would say, about what's being offered in the market. I mean, like for Bahrain, we have a very strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the government, the private sector, the semi-governments, the corporates, they are all pushing for the entrepreneurial and hub and to make it stronger, and they are offering different programs, different supporting schemes, different campuses, even as young as school students. We do have, like in Jazz in Bahrain, that they are building the entrepreneurial challenges between students as well. And this is also, it starts from as early as students in Bahrain. We have the Supreme Council for Women, also is a big arm, a governmental arm to support women, headed by the First Lady in Bahrain. And the Bahraini women have started education from 1923. I mean, it's not like, no, there is a lot of programs, there is a lot of supporting programs. We have also Temkeen. They have different programs across different, it caters for from school students to big companies. They can all use the programs of Temkeen to support and scale up their businesses. So, I mean, what we do as NGOs in Bahrain is to bring those programs together with the entrepreneurs and the startups and make sure that they know what is going on, what is being offered, and to be frank here, and especially with Tamkeen, they do a yearly event to strategize, to add and to add to their strategy, taking the feedback from the NGOs, from the private sector, from the startups themselves. So I mean, it's at the end, it's a win-win situation, and they design it and they keep redesigning things and amend things to suit the ecosystem. So I mean, we really have a very strong ecosystem, and our role is, I mean, if there is any entrepreneur or a startup that is not benefiting from the offer, it means that they are not aware, or they don't know it, but it's there. We just need to bring everybody together.
Yeah, thank you, Feryal. Simran, you're an entrepreneur and you're operating out of the Middle East right now. Are you aware of everything that is being set up for women in business in terms from the enticement and in terms of the education part, the acceleration, the incubation, and everything else?
So we have a dual entity we set up here and in the US, and we've been running our business globally. So from day one, we've tried to have the approach. We were backed also by, unfortunately, only by a foreign entity right now, the VC fund. So in terms of even investment, I think there's a lot happening in mentoring. I somehow feel we've got a lot of mentoring. We actually need funds, right? So I'm tapping out where I feel where the money is, where I know people will invest. You know, there's this thing of women are over-mentored, right, and under-sponsored. So I think, I mean, I have, you know, we've had a lot of experience, of course, not in the startup phase. So we did this, the funding lab with FI, which was very helpful. And that was, for me, that was the most, you know, the education part of it, where, you know, I really learned how to fundraise, how to plan, how to build the strategy. But beyond it, there's just so much happening in the mentoring space, which is great. But really, we're looking for funds.
Okay. Megan, from the funding perspective, let's talk about the education part. So we have the Founder Institute, for example, as an accelerator program, a pre-seed accelerator program, and we have the Female Founder Initiative. So that is also not supporting necessarily with the funding, but supporting with the mentoring, as Simran was saying, and supporting with the fellowships and everything else. Do you believe this is the biggest challenge women are facing from your experience and all the stories that you're facing, or is it really just about the funding, the enabling part of the business?
Yeah, so I think we've seen a lot of efforts. FI, I can speak for FI in the way that we've been approached. We did run our first all-female cohort in Pakistan, and it started in November. It was a heavily vetted group of women. 14 women joined the program. There was a grant given at the end of it through the Pakistani government. It was, I would say, a very successful cohort, which connected the women in Islamabad with investors and mentors in Silicon Valley, as well as in the region. And it, again, it was a completely sponsored program by the government. We've been approached by universities throughout the Middle East to see if they, you know, if we can provide our programming to students. We've seen grants to help address some of the major issues, I think, that local regions feel that they're facing. So in Western Africa, we've received some proposals to address women dealing with some rice farming issues that are, again, very regional that I'm not going to get into. And so I do think that we see overall an effort for whether it be educational institutions or governments to address those issues and often provide equity-free grant funding, which is ideal. But again, that's not, those checks are never going to be as large as a fundraising check. What I will say is the partners that we have through FFI who do fundraising have, in the whole COVID virtual environment, they've expanded their reach significantly. So there were groups that we worked with that were interested in investing in women or minority run companies. And they used to have a pretty narrow scope. It was Bay Area, or it was US, or US and Canada. And now they'll look at companies anywhere, because you're not flying in for a meeting anymore, right? You can get on a Zoom and pitch your company. You know, Simran mentioned Loyal VC. Loyal VC is a partner of ours. It's run by a man named Kamal. Kamal is aggressive about having a diverse portfolio. And he consistently asks me about numbers, and if he sees that a cohort wasn't, you know, 40 to 50% women, he's asking me what was wrong with that, and he won't invest. And so I do think we're seeing an appetite from investors for a more global portfolio. But again, you know, when we're talking about those disparities, those continue. I think LATAM tends to be one of the most diverse regions in terms of equality for entrepreneurs, men to women. I think it's something like 45% of the founders are women there. The checks that they're getting are much smaller. The rate that they're getting funded is still much smaller. So we know it's not a pipeline issue, right? There is still a serious issue of access. But again, I'm hoping that with a more virtual environment, we're finding ways to address that, and investors are really trying to broaden their portfolio and the founders that they're willing to invest in.
Thank you, Megan. Nadia, we're talking about the enticers, we're talking about the educators, and I know you've been across the spectrum. Now we talk about the enablers, the funding part. Simran was saying, you know, we're enough with the mentoring, enough with all of this, give us the funding. From your experience, is it really just about the funding? Is this the biggest challenge that women in business are facing right now? And if we know about the burn rate of startups especially, is it about giving them as much money as possible, or is it about kind of setting up the foundation with them before offering them the funding?
Well, I mean, hopefully if you invest in if you decide and you've done your due diligence to invest in a founder, they know how to manage their money. So it's, you know, whether I know founders who investors have written checks and they're like, okay, I don't need it all up front. Can you like just stagger the payments so that the startup will actually do it? But, you know, your network is your net worth. And it's as simple as that. And just to go back to what Simran is saying, and this is something I actually wanted to pose to the whole group, because I'm starting to get this feeling, you know, women don't need it. There are programs coming up and the government's doing, but at some stage it's going to have to, I feel like it's going to have to be mandated that a portion of your funding needs to go to mixed teams or female funded teams, because I don't know how long we need to keep talking about this for it to actually change. And I point fingers at the VCs who are not, you know, who are not focused on this, or they create little portions of their capital for impact, and then impact is like helping the women. Women don't. That's almost to say that they need additional help and they're not good enough. We are good enough. The entrepreneurs are good enough. So they don't need your help. They don't need your advisory. They don't need your support. They don't need your like mentor. Yes, you need all those things, but they need your capital. And not in the sense of money, but your business. Doing business with women is a trade of value. It's value for value. You know, I give you a portion of my company, and you give me capital to scale, or you give me capital to invest. It's the conversation. I completely agree. You know, creating these programs for women and these special, it's almost like, you know, charity in a sense. Investing in women is a complete opportunity, and until we have some success stories coming out of the works, I feel like that's the only time that's going to change, or if government actually mandates it for funds to, like they have with women sitting in decision-making positions on boards. It just has to be mandated at some stage, because I mean, there's just under $1 billion in funding in Q1 that went into the men arena, and still we're talking about less than 1% going to women. It's just not good enough anymore. And I think the government and the accelerators and the incubators do an amazing job cultivating that type of ecosystem and looking at, okay, the intake in the cohorts like Founders Institute is doing and all the councils are doing. But at the end of the day, if the VCs are not writing fair check sizes and writing the almost equal fair amount of their portfolio going to women, I'm sorry, like nothing's going to change. So I wonder if the whole story about mandating it is an open conversation, but unless the government starts putting an eye onto the VCs that have the capital or those writing the checks, you know, it's not going to change much, because we've been talking about it for a very long time.
One of the other questions,
you know, just having.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because it's also will it also be part of the mandate that the women, and I know I've heard it from a lot of women who have tried to kind of, or went through the seed rounds and everything and trying to get money out of investors, and the questions such as, do you actually need that much money? Is this business valued at that? Do you have any kids, and are you willing to have more? Just because that means that, you know, their time bandwidth is being diminished and stuff. And I wish that also becomes a mandate, that women don't get to ask these questions when they're trying to raise funds. Yeah. But it's interesting that you bring that up. Feryal, you've worked, and you work also on the governmental side. So you're working on the enticement part. Now we know, and we are all I think we've all testified that there is a lot of movement in terms of the women-specific programs, the mandates for empowering women and all of this. But do you believe there will come the day where there is an actual mandate for investing in women and women funds, specific funds?
Hanan, as I have also a role in the World Business Angel Investment Forum, and that I am part of, I'm the Vice President of the Executive Global Women Leader Council. Yes. And one of the mandates that we do have in the World Business Angel Investment Forum to support angel investing in women is that we do have a percentage of, and it's a mandate for us and committed to that, that there is a percentage of the investment that was going to happen in the global fundraising stage. Part of it will go for companies that are, at least they have 2 women in their board. So this is a mandate that we are starting with, actually, and I have been heading this committee that I'm very much interested about supporting women and angel investing in women and convincing women to angel invest in women as well. I mean, we do need to start with ourselves, by the way. I mean, yes. we as women need to support each other. And this has been even a subject that I have run a roundtable last year, and I brought angel investors and VCs to talk about angel investing in women and supporting women. And this is my really concern, I mean, for the past few years now. So at a certain level, I mean, like the WBAF, it is a mandate for us. We are putting yes. that percentage, but I hope it can go across. I mean, why not? And as you have mentioned, I mean, I think we should, with the gender equalities now, movement that all the governments are doing now, and in all countries, and they are putting numbers about gender equality. And I think by now we should not be asked such questions. I mean, that are very, I mean, we are today, I mean, there are so many women we have unicorn women.
Yep. Yeah,
Isn't
we
it?
have.
I mean, we have proved enough that we are capable, and we will reach to that level. I mean, we don't need to be asked certain questions. We are strong enough. We have presidents, we have ministers, we have, I mean, the woman proved herself enough not to be asked certain silly questions. And today we need to put hand in hand and support each other. And I loved what Nadia is doing and starting in Dubai. I just wrote her a message as well, and I would like to connect with her because this is also my concern. And we have started an angel network here in Bahrain. And
It would be nice to join forces, yeah. And Lucy, by the way, Lucy Chow is also part of the movement. So, and Lucy is part of WAF. So this is where we all connect towards a bigger.
We need to put hand in hand, definitely.
Exactly. Thank you, Feryal. Diala, do you think from your perspective and from where, you know, everything you are doing, can you feel that women are not getting enough funding? Okay, I know I'm not going to force the answer, but I would like to know yours. And also, how can you see more women getting funding?
Well, actually, data proves that, and even reports from Magnet on the VC landscape in the MENA region, and now they expanded their data coverage to cover Turkey and Pakistan. Their data clearly shows that yes, there's a huge difference in terms of the funding going to female-led versus male-led organizations. One of the points that I really admired, which was raised by Feryal, is that most of these VCs in the region, they have female partners, female VCs on them, and some female even board members. Why wouldn't women start something internally, like somehow, I'm not going to call it a revolution, but literally a reform somehow in these VCs to start at least give an objective somehow eye to what women have to propose, let's say, or to pitch, keeping aside everything pertaining to them being females or being the company being a female-led organization. So I believe like literally starting from ourselves, us women trying to support other women, genuinely trying to drive some change, to introduce some initiatives here and there to support one another can actually help a lot. But definitely, like as you mentioned, data is the only truth we can believe in, and it shows the huge differences. On a regular basis, Magnet keeps on reminding the ecosystem of the gaps existing in this specific funding rounds.
Thank you, Diala. And you know what? This is why I love to have these conversations, and we're not restating the obvious because, believe it or not, it's not that obvious. I was listening to a panel discussion with someone who's quite well known, a gentleman in the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the MENA, and he was saying, no, there's no disparity in terms of funding. It's just we only fund in ideas, and everyone's like, are you serious? Are you not looking at the numbers? And I think that's why it's really important to have these conversations, because even if they're not seeing the numbers, then at least we could be talking about it, and it could be more audible from that perspective. Simran, from your experience as an entrepreneur raising funds, and yes, I know you went through Founder Institute, you went through the Funding Lab, and you went through Loyal VC. Have you tried, what kind of challenges have you faced when you're raising fund and you're a women-owned business and you are serving women as well?
We are actually currently going through the process. Of course, I've kind of educated myself. I'm aware of the numbers. I think Loyal happened fast, I would say. But of course, I'm quite mindful of what kind of funds to approach, because we know these are certain type that are, they have a similar values, they're aligned. So I'm also kind of focusing on funds like I know in the Middle East, there are one or two that I'm looking to target. So far it's been okay. But of course, I've been talking a lot to people, and right, there are barely single-digit percentage female partners, right, in the VC space. It's a very male-driven industry. We are solving a problem for women. I was actually talking to an investor in the Valley, and he said it's just been, generations of people listening to similar talk, right? When you're listening to that talk and you're the next one, he said, somebody just said, let's invest in women's health. And he said, but that's a niche. Women's health is not a niche, right? It's a massive industry, right? It's half of the population. But then the mindsets are like that because, you're used to listening to that. So yeah, I think I'm kind of it's again, I again recommend the Funding Lab's been an eye opener, very helpful. Those are very concrete programs. This is the way you do it. And I was actually talking to an entrepreneur yesterday who's just raised a big round, and she told me, it'll be even hard when you go to women investors because there are so few. And then for them, it becomes harder when they're one out of 20 in the organization to vet for another female entrepreneur, because they know if they go wrong, it'll be harder for them. And it's easier when it's a man investing because he knows it's just another startup. So it was like, it's going to be, so I was like, okay, who do you talk to? So I guess, just because it's just so imbalanced, right? It creates all these barriers. And I hope as more of us succeed, more of us invest, become angel investors, open our own funds and drive more equity in the whole system. Clearly, we ask for more, more traction, more numbers.
More
we
checks.
know that word. Yeah, more smaller checks, more traction, much more things than what data shows what men asked, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Simran. Megan, from your perspective and from where you are right now in terms of the admissions, in terms of Female Founder Initiative and Funding Lab, are you seeing the numbers also replicated in terms of women's participation in Funding Lab and beyond in getting the interest from the investors?
Yeah, we do see pretty decent numbers in Funding Lab. I would say most are somewhere, so our global graduation rate is 40% women. And I think that is pretty well mirrored in Funding Lab as well as our select indexes. So from that perspective, I do think we see that. Again, I think there is an issue with what percentage of women are getting funded, but there's also an issue of fair funding, right? If the average check size for a man is 12 million and the average check size for a woman is 500,000, that disparity is maybe a bigger issue than what percentage of women are getting funded, because you can do a lot more with $12 million than you can $500,000. And so I think creating those opportunities as well remains a challenge. I do think we've seen fundraising success pretty equal between men and women in Funding Lab, but and from our admission standpoint, I think we've seen a huge uptick in women looking to start companies. I think, again, because COVID has been such a frustrating experience for so many women, whether they're having to leave their job for childcare or whether they were laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, or whether they're just sick of the inflexibility of their old job. And we saw the Great Resignation occur. And so we've seen a lot more women and a lot more demographics looking to start their own company, I think, out of just sheer frustration. On the other side of that, we have a spinoff company, VC Lab, and VC Lab is creating about 150 venture capital firms a year, and they tend to be a very diverse group. And I'd say that the entire premise of VC Lab was maybe spun off of just the frustration of traditional venture capitalists, right? I think we see kind of a global frustration of what of the limited scope of venture capital firms is specifically in Silicon Valley and the Sand Hill Shuffle, and just a desire to kind of diversify what venture capital looks like and the companies that those firms invest in.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Okay, ladies, I want to ask the last question before we go for the closing remarks, and then we have a couple of questions coming in, well, more than a couple of questions coming in the Q&A. But specifically post-pandemic, we are theoretically in the post-pandemic era, we are getting out of it. How do you see women, or where do you see the opportunities for women to scale business in the post-pandemic era? Diala, I'll start with you.
I'd rather go a little bit after the ladies because my nephew is in the background. Okay. So just to avoid some extra noise, I'll go after the ladies. Sorry for this.
This is the beautiful thing I love about having conversations with women. We're okay with that. Okay, Feryal, we'll go to you then.
If your question, Hanan, is about which sector they should go post-pandemic, I mean, is that clear? Yeah. So, I mean, during the pandemic, we were talking about changing your business model, digitalizing. I mean, all of those webinars that we have conducted. I mean, we've been so busy during the pandemic. It made us really busy talking behind those small screens. So all of us were talking about, I mean, sustainable businesses, changing the business models. I can see the women are going towards STEM businesses, renewable energy, environmental businesses, food security, meditech. I mean, these are the sectors that today and during the pandemic we were all talking about, and we are trying to have a role, one or another, in these kind of sectors, which is the future, I believe. So I think the pandemic gave us a big lesson, and we need to learn from that.
Yes, thank you, Feryal. Nadia, from post-pandemic again, is it about there's a kind of segment for women to scale businesses now, looking at the post-pandemic era? Is it about the kind of segments that they should be focusing on, or the kind of funding they should be looking for, or the kind of markets that they should be expanding towards?
Yeah, well, I think it's very, very specific to the type of business that the startup has. I mean, fintech keeps getting a lot of funding, which speaks to the financial infrastructure and how it needs a workover. But I would say, you know, economies of scale, if you're trying to expand, find where your economies of scale is, and follow the funding. You know, there's a lot of funding coming from Europe, UK, US. For female founders, it's a lot more mature than it unfortunately is in MENA. But in terms of scale, it's where you have economies of scale. And if your business is digital, it's a lot easier. If you're a brick and mortar business, you still rely on your immediate surroundings, and then that is based on your network. So yeah, I would say try and focus on where the funding is and where the economies of scale are.
Thank you, Nadia. Simran, is it from your perspective, what are you looking for? This is a direct question, it's not a hypothetical. What are you looking for in terms of scaling post-pandemic?
So pandemic's kind of been a bliss for us for doing business, whether it be networking, whether it be fundraising, right? I guess before that it was impossible or unimaginable that you could just pitch virtually and raise. Also in terms of expansion, in terms of having teams. So as an entrepreneur, it's been fantastic. You know, I have 2 small kids, so it's been fantastic. The accelerator was virtual. You can, you know, connect to anyone globally, you know, without having to travel. So it's worked really well. And we're building a global business, and Dubai is a great place actually to be in, right? Yeah. It's a fantastic city, a global city. So it's been fantastic that our customers are spread across the globe as well. So I hope the world continues to remain at least semi-virtual. I think it will. And I've heard lots of women also in investing space, also in entrepreneurship, say the same. You know, I could have never networked so much as I have. Because, you know, it was just not possible to go out every day at 9, you know, for all those after work drinks events. And now it's just, you know, you can attend all of those. So it's been kind of in a way leveler as well, I would say. And I feel we've really kind of leveraged that.
Great. Megan, I know that Founder Institute programs all went virtual with the pandemic. How are you seeing the scaling of businesses in women specifically post-pandemic, and with the support of programs such as the Founder Institute and the Female Founder Initiative?
Yeah, well, I guess I would just touch on that last point, which is, 40% of the people that we did a huge survey last year just to kind of gauge how virtual versus in person would go. 40% of people told us that they wouldn't be able to attend our program if it was held in person. And, you know, that's one location based and just having to commute in and out of the city center. But it's also having kids at home. It's having childcare or a full-time job or whatever that looks like. Removing those barriers has allowed a lot more women to participate in the program. In terms of scale, I think the companies that we've seen be proposed by our female founders tend to be pretty directly related to the pain that they felt over the last 2 years. So getting a lot of edutech companies, getting a lot of health tech companies, getting a lot of foods, goods, service, supply chain company ideas out of women, because they are more likely to go to a doctor or take a kid to a doctor. They're more likely to be teaching their kids at home. They're more likely to be ordering products online and be facing those supply chain issues. And so I think, obviously having a health tech or sometimes an edutech company is a little difficult in terms of global scale, because everyone has a different healthcare system and a different education system. But I think a lot of those companies have potential, and I think women are definitely the people to be creating those companies, because they were the ones facing those pain points. I don't want to talk too loud because my husband's here, but did I bear the brunt of childcare? Yes.
Yeah.
Am I taking my kid to the pediatrician? Yes. So I think,
are you doing the homeschooling? Yep.
So I think I think women who know the ins and outs of the problem are the right ones to be solving it, and I think there's a ton of opportunity there. The pandemic may be coming to a close, sure, but I think in reality, some of these problems are going to be longer term, or we're going to need longer term solutions for them, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you, Megan. Diala, the pandemic,
no background noise.
The post-pandemic and opportunities for women scaling a business. What are your views from your perspective?
When it comes to business, I believe there were two positive things created by the pandemic. Number one is, as the ladies mentioned, that we really learned how to actually do things more efficiently through switching to digital, virtual activations and the like. And this really opened the door to switching the activations of so many accelerators worldwide into the virtual, which gives women from all around the world the opportunity to join accelerators that are literally across the globe in order to benefit from all the resources they're offering them, which they wouldn't have access to in their countries of origin. And now, for example, for the TESMO accelerator, we are literally taking a strategic decision to move forward with a virtual program just for the sake of allowing regional and the global startups to have access to the Qatari market. So this is one of the positive things that the pandemic, I believe, had created. And the other good thing in the business world is that it highlighted or created some gaps when it comes to the digital landscape and digital services in general. So for countries that lacked, let's say, some digital solutions, the pandemic had forced governments and even the private sector to really come up with innovative solutions to help address these gaps or these lacks of services. And when it came to certain gaps that were existing in already existing solutions, also the pandemic helped highlight these, so eventually players can literally jump in and help support in all of that. In terms of scaling up, I believe for any founder, whether female or male, I wouldn't say they should follow the trends of what's happening. For example, when I sit with Turkish startups, let's say the very first market they think about where they're scaling up is the European markets. When I sit with them and tell them more about what's the landscape like in Saudi, UAE, and even Qatar, they rethink their own assumptions and they really start reconsidering other geographies. So literally don't just follow the trends of moving to a certain country because startups in your country are moving there. Just look for what are the trends in your industry, what are literally the opportunities for you in your industry with your solution to explore and to expand to other geographies that really might defy the odds. So this is actually my advice in terms of scaling up.
Okay, well, let's wrap up with you then. I'll ask the final question and I would love all of you to give one statement about it. If you are to give one piece of advice to women starting, growing, or scaling a business, what would that be?
Don't let your mentality hinder you, literally. If you think something might not apply for your business, if you think this VC is not the right one to approach, if you think this business model might not succeed, just explore, literally. Just take some chances and try to explore it to see if it works for you or not, because frankly, what worked for others might not work for you at all.
Yeah, that's very solid advice. Feryal, what would be your final advice?
My final advice is create opportunities from your own challenges, from the challenges that you might face. And this is what we have done during the pandemic. As I said, it was a big lesson. So just build your emperor from your challenges.
That's
I would
true.
say that.
Or they say it now, there's another term for it, is create your mess is to become your message, and then your message becomes your empire. So there are ways to grow from that. Megan, what would be your final advice?
Yeah, I guess I would just say don't undervalue yourself and don't undervalue your equity. You know, I think those are two things to just highly prize.
Very, very valid. Nadia, talking of equity, what would be your final
So
advice?
I would say this is my advice to a female entrepreneur: just connect with the investor on your numbers and close with your story. So women tend to do it the other way around. They open with the story and then the numbers come last. But in order to connect with the investor, you connect on the numbers and you close the deal with the story. So that would be my advice.
I love that. I love that. And I think this is a very valid mindset switch as well for women entrepreneurs, to be able to, where we usually led with the emotion also. And I mean, there are emotions and numbers as well, but it's bringing them up front. Simran?
Yeah, I think I would just say it's a long and very hard journey. So
Yep, dose of
what
truth there.
needs to build resilience. But what's really helped is building good relations. So I would say nurture relationships. People talk a lot about networking, but just meet, ask, and move on. But just nurture relationships. You never know how people help. So I think we've just come so far only because of help and support from a lot of good, kind people. So yeah, that's all. Surround yourself with people. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ladies, we have about 12 minutes. I'm going to try to take as many questions as possible, just to make sure everyone is happy. I just need my reading glasses to be able to see. Okay, KK was asking if they should be writing something about startup during the Zoom call. Not necessarily, but you're welcome. I think my beautiful co-director, Carmen, has included the LinkedIn accounts for everyone, including ourselves and all our panelists. So you're welcome to connect with them and see, how you could benefit from their advice on your startup. Priya asked, what's the one big blocker to investors during funding female business? Nadia, do you want to take that one?
I think to be honest, I don't think a male investor sits on the other side going, I don't want to invest in female-led businesses. I just think it's you invest in what you know, because it's a risk, it's risk mitigation. So if you struggle to invest in what you don't know and don't understand or don't feel. So I think that's the biggest blocker, and that's why you need more female investors or male investors with daughters and a good connection with their feminine side, so that for me it's is the difference.
That's true, and that's why femtech sometimes is a bit intimidating, because I'm not really, and I think Diala was talking about it, is like, yeah, I don't get it. Like it's a niche. No, it's not a niche. Femtech is not a niche. We're talking about 50% of the population needs female health solutions. Okay, so an interesting question: do you advise to have a male co-founder temporarily to secure the fund? As in, should you trick the system? Feryal, I can see you're laughing about this. Do you have advice to trick the system and have temporarily a male co-founder?
Why not, if he's ready to pay?
Okay, it's ready to put in the work, huh?
Yes, why not? I mean, it depends. I mean, I totally agree with Nadia. It depends on the project and how attractive is the project and the knowledge as well. When the people will not invest in things that they don't understand in as well. Because also when we say even investing, we are talking about smart finance, and smart finance, you need to also be a mentor to that startup. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense that we invest in something that we don't know, because we need to support this startup, to give him network, to give him mentorship, and to try to market this project as well. So doesn't to me, I mean, I don't mind a male or a female as long as they will be supporting the project.
That's true.
That's
That's
sort
true.
of-
Someone anonymous that put in a comment more than a question is that it's not just about female angel investors, it's about female investors that have the network and the added value to the business, which is not easy to find. And hence why, another reason why we're having these conversations, because you just got two examples of female investors here right now, Nadia and Feryal, and they're talking about networks as well. So this is where we are shining the light on the resources that are available to you, and you can connect and know further and get the support and the funding support that you require. Can you please host more webinars with females that raise funds to learn from their experiences? Anonymous to me, thank you. Yes, yes, definitely. We need to have more of these conversations, and definitely talking about the funding experiences, we will. Christina asked, what would you suggest for if female startup founders trying to reach out to accelerators and funds and do not get any response? Many accelerators talk about being open and calling to join them. However, the response rate is almost zero. Diala, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So sometimes you should keep in mind that really accelerators timelines change last minute, depending on the logistics and different things that might come up across the journey. And imagine yourself, you're one of the hundreds of applicants who are actually reaching out to the different staff of these organizations. So it might be really challenging for team members sometimes to reply back to people. Sometimes really they miss out on your email because it goes to spam. So I would say literally wait until the results are out, or until you know there's a closer or a clear timeline or a date for the soft, let's say, confirmations for applicants, and then try to reach out to them. If you don't hear by email by then, I would recommend connecting on LinkedIn with some accelerator members for you to have a closer relationship and make sure you're talking to the right people instead of sending to a generic info at or connect at email addresses. But sometimes literally that the timelines would be so stressful for accelerator team members and players. That's why they don't have the bandwidth to connect with all startups who applied and address all their queries.
And I think the other thing that we've also touched on is about following up, is about building up the grit and perseverance. Nadia spoke of your network equals your net worth, and Simran said the same thing. And I think this is the part where, as you said, building up the relationships will get you to open doors that possibly you thought were a bit more difficult to start with. Dr. Sausan Malik, my friend, hello. She's asking, does anyone have any idea about the entrepreneurship ecosystem and the accelerators and investors in Kuwait, since we're talking about the GCC? Do you have any connections over there, Nadia? Feryal, do you know anything about the Kuwait market at this point in time? Feryal, can you hear me?
Can you repeat the question? I think I have some connection problem.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question again, Dr. Hanan?
The question was about the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kuwait. Do we have any updates about the, in terms of the accelerators or the angel investors in Kuwait?
Not really. I'm very
Not
sorry.
really. Okay.
No.
Then this is something, Sausan, I will ask about this. I will start digging up the information. I will pass it on, or I will share it on LinkedIn for anyone who is also interested. A couple more questions before we run out of time. We spoke about the last advice for women who want to raise funds. We spoke about, okay, how much does having a strong team to show investors matter at pre-seed? Would bringing on a strong team on conditional offers subject to receiving funds would be a good idea? Nadia?
The team matters a lot. And this goes back to your previous question of, is it mixed teams work best? Not, so, but the team, especially in pre-seed, it's very high risk. So you don't have much to go by other than the grit and the will of those that you work with. So the team for pre-seed is very important, and investors do understand that, it's you do need somebody full-time in a business. Nobody's going to invest in somebody or the whole team working part-time, but yeah, the team is always important, pre-seed or right through. I would definitely focus on that when you've got not much else other than research, development, market insights, and not much traction. So the team is really all that's there, and mixed teams work best.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Board living. Ask the question. I think Carmen, Megan, this would be for you. It's like, how do you lead your team being a female founder? And should you allow, and I like this, should you allow EQ to prevail versus IQ or any other aspects that come along with a female leading team?
Yeah, I think when you're leading a team, you need to make sure that you've put your mission forward and that you're hiring people who align with your mission, that you're not necessarily hiring for culture fit, that you're hiring the people who are the right people for the job, but who also believe in what your company is doing, who are kind of closing any sort of gaps in skills, and who obviously you don't, as a woman, you're not going to hire men who don't respect you as a leader, right? So you want to, I think building a diverse team is still very important, not siloing out to, an all-female company, but making sure that, there is a mutual respect within the company and that everybody's values do align with the core value of the company. Again, I think you get into an issue of culture fit and then you start hiring people who look just like you. And so it's important to kind of, I think, avoid that in general. In terms of IQ versus EQ, so we do run a personality assessment as part of the admissions part of our accelerator. While there are correlations with your IQ and success, there's also correlations between emotional stability and being successful as an entrepreneur. I think we worked with a team of social scientists, and they actually kind of designated 27 different attributes that contribute to successful entrepreneurship. And so I think when we talk about finding teams, we talk about finding well-rounded, balanced teams. So if somebody is very organized and responsible, having somebody who's weak, that might be their weakness, is okay. You want definitely shared trust. You want complementary skill set. You want emotional safety. You want overall aligned goals, whether that's when you're going to exit your company, whether that's how your roles are going to develop, how you want to fundraise. Of course, now it's virtual versus distributed, or in-person versus distributed teams. There are some key alignment parts, but I don't think you can weigh IQ versus EQ when it comes to which is more important.
Yep, I think, yeah, as you said, it's a mix of both. Simran, since you're a female founder, let's get your take on EQ versus IQ to wrap up our conversation here.
It's a very interesting question. I don't know, when I'm leading, I'm not thinking if I'm a woman or a man, or I'm just leading. I guess, as the world gets more automated, driven by AI, I think EQ becomes more and more important. At the end, you're leading people. So especially for startups, right? You're not, early stages, you're not compensating them that much. They are in because they have to be aligned with your vision. So they really need to see your passion. They need to see that this is going to, be somewhere. So for us as well, right? We've got a lot of people, thankfully, advisors, ambassadors who are just doing things, out of passion for the cause. And I think that just comes because, it resonates with them. So it's more important, than in a corporate where, you're going to give a salary. So people are big one, I mean. So that gets easier. So leadership becomes even harder, right? When you're leading a startup in early stages and so much is unpredictable. So yeah, I think you need to lead. You need to show the way. You need to lead with passion. And EQ plays clearly a big role.
A big part. Thank you so much, Simran. Thank you to everyone. I hope we've answered all your questions. I believe that the remaining questions were already answered in the discussion. I don't want to be taking any more of my valued panelists' time. There is, of course, the optional networking that you can come. You can ask us any questions you want on Founder Institute. The link is in the chat. That's the Air Meet. Ladies, I'm so grateful for you. For accepting the invite and for all the very valuable insights that you have shared with us tonight. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Simran, Diala, Feryal, Megan. You're leading the way and you're setting kind of trailblazing in your own ways. And I really do hope that everything you have shared tonight gives inspiration to everyone who's attended, males and females, and to be able to start, grow, or scale a business. We know that these conversations need to happen. These conversations cannot happen. Again, I'll always keep saying this, they cannot happen in a vacuum. And I was so happy to see some of our gentlemen showing up for these discussions. We know that these conversations need to continue, and we need to involve both genders and everyone in these conversations to be able to move forward. I do hope that we empower women, and we don't just empower them with the words, we empower them with the actions, we empower them with the funding, we empower them with the mentoring and the support and everything that sets up a very strong foundation for them to be able to show up, to create the impact that they are wishing for in this world, and more importantly, to be positively impacting all the economies and the ecosystems that there are present in. So ladies, thank you once again. And I wish you a beautiful evening and day wherever you are. And I hope we have more of these conversations.
Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing us together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll see you hopefully on the other side with the networking. I'll see you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.